So now we've seen two examples of naming alkanes. We've seen just a regular straight alkane, unbranched, and we've seen an alkane with a single branch and how to name those. So this is our next project. This molecule has a lot of branches on it. Before we tackle this molecule, let's go back to the first page here and let's add a little bit to our steps for naming alkanes. So finding the longest carbon chain and identifying and naming the substituents, we got that. The next thing that we need to do, which we did practice in the last example, number the carbon chain. And remember that our goal is to give the substituents the smallest possible number or numbers. Lowest possible number. So let's look at our next example. This one has got a lot of branches on it, which means that it's going to be tricky. When we're looking for the longest carbon chain, we could start at any one of these terminal carbon atoms and we could go to any one of them. So we have a lot of possibilities to consider as being the parent chain for the molecule. Now, because we're clever, when we look at these, there's a few that we can eliminate right away. Like, we don't need to bother counting that because we know that that's not going to be the longest chain, or this one right here. What we want to be looking for is reasonable longest carbon chain. So I really want to think about starting on this end of the molecule and working my way all the way to the other end. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that looks like a pretty long chain. Don't forget this down here though. So let's consider starting here and working our way down to here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, we have a tie. That's also 7. Or what if we go from here to here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 3 different ways. Well, I guess technically more than that if you include this. So we have several ways to come up with a chain of 7 carbon atoms. In a situation like that, what we want to do is find the longest carbon chain that has the most substituents, which might seem kind of counterintuitive at first, but when we find the longest carbon chain with the most substituents, ultimately that molecule will be the easiest one to name. So let's consider if we go this way as our longest chain. And if we do that, how many substituents do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 substituents if we go that way. What if we follow this path right here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So how many substituents do we have that way? We have 1, 2, 3. That's not as many. So that means that what we want to do is call this our parent chain. Now you might be noticing that as I'm doing this, I'm never considering this as an option going down here instead of going up here. And that is because if you can see, this way versus this way is identical in terms of the number of carbon atoms. So I don't need to count, I don't need to consider both of them. So there we have found our longest carbon chain, and let me see if I can erase these red dots without screwing anything up. All right, there it is. That's step 1. Now remember, step number 2 is going to be to find and identify all of our substituents. So we've got a substituent right here, right here, right here, and then also right here. And when we're identifying them, their name is going to be based on how many carbon atoms they have. And in the last video, I talked about how you cannot count the parent chain carbon as belonging to the substituent. Every carbon atom that belongs to the parent chain can only be included in the parent chain, and it cannot be considered as a substituent. So this is a 1 carbon substituent, and so is this, and so is this. They're all going to be given the same name. They are all called methyl. Now, if you forgot where that name comes from, I'll show you in just a second as we figure out the name of this substituent. This is 1, 2, 3 carbon substituent. Let's look and see what that guy's name is. 3 carbon atoms as a substituent, we call it propyl. So this guy's name is propyl. So this is obviously going to be a more complicated name than either of the two molecules that we've already done. So before we jump into this molecule's name, let's go back to the first screen with the steps of naming our alkanes and see where we're at. Find the longest carbon chain, identify and name the substituents, number the carbon chain to give the substituents the lowest possible number. Oh, I guess we could do that before we move on. Let's go back and let's do that. Let's number our carbon chain. So remember, our goal is to give our substituents the smallest set of numbers. And usually that means that we want to start at the end of the chain where the substituents are closer. Start at the end closest to the first substituent, meaning that this end of the molecule, we're only one carbon away before we come to our first substituent. At this end of the molecule, we're a couple carbons away before we come to the first substituent. That rule's not always going to work, but that's usually a good starting point. So let's consider if we were to number from right to left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Our substituents are on carbon 2, 3, 4, and 5. If we were to consider numbering the other way, so starting here, this is carbon 1 and this is 2, then our substituents would be on 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're looking at 2, 3, 4, and 5 as our numbers versus 3, 4, 5, and 6. And again, our goal is to pick the smallest set of numbers. So this is the correct numbers. The numbers that we've written down already are the correct numbers. So those are the locations of our substituents. Now let's go back because we've got a more complicated molecule here. When we are putting our molecule's name together, we are, like in the last example, we're going to start by naming the substituents first, and then we end with the parent chain name. When we put the substituents at the beginning of the name, we put them in alphabetical order. So not in numerical order. We will alphabetize the substituents all at the front of the molecule's name. We also have to give their location as well. And when we have multiple of the same type of a substituent, like in this example where we have 3 methyls, we can use Greek prefixes to indicate the quantity of any substituent that we have multiples of. But when we are using these Greek prefixes to indicate the quantity, we will ignore these prefixes when we are alphabetizing. So this is a confusing rule. So let me say as an example, if we have, so a prefix, one possible prefix would be tri. If we had trimethyl, which we will have in this case, that is going to be alphabetized as an M, because when we are alphabetizing, we ignore the prefix during the alphabetization process. So let's go back and let's see if we can figure this out. In the molecule's name, we know that we are going to end with the name of the parent chain. That's going to be the very last part, and that's a 7-carbon parent chain. So I'm going to put it way over here. This is a heptane, just like our previous example. At the beginning of the name, we need to put our substituents, and we need them to be in alphabetical order. So what comes first alphabetically? Methyl versus propyl. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, P. So methyl is going to come first. We have 3 methyl substituents in this molecule. Every single one of those substituents has to be located. We have to give the location or the address of every one of them on carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 5. So I'm going to put that way up front, carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 5. And notice that I've put commas in between those numbers. We don't want to jam them all together because then it looks like 235. We want to make sure that we're separating them from each other. And since we already use dash to separate our numbers and our letters, we're going to use commas to separate our numbers from our numbers. So we'll find a space to squeeze that note in, just like we fit this note in. 2, 3, 5. Now we need to say that on 2 and 3 and 5 we have methyls. We're not going to say methyl, methyl, methyl. We're going to use Greek prefixes to indicate how many methyls we have. The Greek prefix for 3, as I've already said, is tri. You learned these Greek prefixes in Gen Chem. You may have forgotten them, but you did learn them in Gen Chem when you were learning how to name molecules like carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. The prefixes that we use the most often in organic chemistry are di and tri, but occasionally we'll use tetra, penta, and hexa as well. And really, I feel like tetra is the only one that kind of confuses students because the rest of them do make quite a bit of sense. So Greek prefixes, let's add that to the list of things that we need to memorize. If you don't already remember them. Greek prefixes for 2 through 6 will definitely cover you. And let's go back to this molecule. So we have 3 methyls. We've already said that they're on 2, 3, and 5. And the way that we're going to say 3-methyl is trimethyl. So that covers the location and the name of 3 of our substituents. Now next in the alphabet is our propyl substituent. We have to say where the propyl is located. It's on carbon number 4. Notice that I have a dash because I'm separating letters from numbers. And then the substituent name, propyl. I gave myself the perfect amount of space there. So this molecule's name is 2,3,5-trimethyl 4-propyl-heptane. And let's dissect it like we did in the previous example. So what do all these different things mean? Heptane tells us that we have a 7-carbon chain. We have 4 substituents on this molecule. So this 2,3,5-trimethyl tells us that we have 3 methyl substituents on carbon 2, 3, and 5. And 4-propyl tells us that we have a propyl substituent on carbon number 4. And let's finish by adding a note. We've got always separate the letters with dashes, and we'll see if we can squeeze it in here. And we're going to separate numbers with a comma.